Hello, Brian the Leafs guy here. Another weekly video. First things first, it's official that Craig Berube has been named the Leafs coach. I think that's a great fit. I'm excited to see what he brings. It looks like Sheldon Keefe has been hired by New Jersey, who I predicted in my last video. So go check out that video as well. And I wish him all the best as well. So in this video, I wanted to go over Mitch Marner and where I think he might fall or where he might go. I do believe he ends up getting traded, and I believe he is the most likely candidate of being traded. However, I want to preface this by saying Mitch Marner is wonderful, and I think he's a phenomenal player, and I do believe he's just such a great asset for the Leafs. I did suggest or think that he should be traded over the past 2 off seasons, not because he was a bad player, just because of the cap situation that we had. People always said our problem is that we had 4 players making $40 million, and I disagreed. I thought it was the fact that we had 3 players making $33 million. I did not think Nylander's contract was a problem. So I was in favor of the past 2 summers of trading Mitch Marner, specifically to bolster our defensive group. Not because he was a bad player. I think he's a phenomenal player and clearly a great asset for the Leafs. But I believe that this year will be a year where he gets moved, but we'll see. He has a full no-move clause, meaning he doesn't need to be traded. It's fully in Mitch Marner's hands if he gets traded or not. So in today's video, I want to go over 5 different places that I think he could possibly get traded. Of course, he needs to waive his no-movement clause. So in these scenarios, I just made quick little trades into to specific places to see if it fits, if it works. But the first place, let me change scenes here. So on Cap Friendly, first team that I wanted to look at was the Carolina Hurricanes. I believe the Carolina Hurricanes have missed some superstar scoring talent on their teams. They're so close to being a true, legitimate cup contender, and they keep falling short. Getting a guy like Mitch Marner would really help enhance their odds, their success. But we'll see how things play out. Of course, they have Martin Necas, who's a restricted free agent, and it looks like they might trade him. So in this proposal, it was Mitch Marner going to Carolina so Mitch Marner going to Carolina and Toronto receiving Martin Necas, and then a first-round pick in 2024. And the Leafs would get cap space. So the Leafs would then need to extend or sign Necas. Probably going to be like a $7-ish million player and a first-round pick for Mitchell Marner. I'm assuming that Mitch Marner, anywhere that he gets traded to, will sign an extension. So have to keep that in mind. So this was just scenario number 1 was with Carolina. I think that could potentially be a good fit. Trade number 2, I think this is a more likely scenario, which was with Seattle. So Seattle specifically, I think, would be a great fit for Mitch Marner. They are really missing high-end talents. So they have Beniers and they have Shane Wright, who are both high-end talents, clearly high picks, but they don't have any true superstar yet. They have really good defensive depth. They have really good forward depth. Their prospect pool is actually nuts. Anytime I'm looking at like either the OHL or the WHL or the QHL leaderboards, I'm like, who's this player? They're at the top of the scoring list. It's always Seattle prospects. It's a bit nuts. They have had quite a few picks. So I think Mitch Marner would be a perfect fit. And coming back to the Leafs, there's quite a few different pieces that I would be interested in. Obviously, they have a first-round pick in 2024. That's an 8th overall. That would be interesting. They have then they have the pick in 2025. They have a bunch of second-round picks. In terms of players, they have Bjorkstrand, who would be a really good complementary forward. His cap hit is $5.4 million for 2 more years. He's just a hardworking forward. I think he would be a really good replacement player. They have Larson on defense, they have Alexiak on defense, and they have Jared McCann on forward. Those are all the type of pieces that I think would be super important or wonderful to get back. I know a lot of Leafs fans have been making trade proposals for Shane Wright with Mitch Marner going back the other way. I don't see that as a possibility. If I were Seattle, I would put Shane Wright on the no-trade list, like he's untouchable. But a package around maybe Bjorkstrand, a first and a second, something on those lines. Because in the scenario, you have to keep in mind that the Leafs are also getting a lot of cap space back. I don't think we're going to get like a crazy, huge piece back. But we'll see. If we end up getting the 8th overall in Bjorkstrand, I'd be super happy with that because we would also get $6 million in cap space as well, which we could use on our defense. And a lot of these scenarios is all about getting more cap space, right? So we don't need to get a defense. I know some people are like, well, your package doesn't have that defenseman that we need. It's like, well, yes, we need a defenseman, but there's a lot of unrestricted free agents in that scenario as well. So team number 3 is Utah, also known as the Arizona Coyotes. So Utah, I believe, are willing to spend more money. They have a ton of picks, a ton of prospects. So this scenario, I went Lawson Krause, who's huge. He's a huge winger. Would be good for 20-ish goals, 20-ish assists. If we get him, Bertuzzi, and Domi all on the same team, I think that would be a fun lineup. I think Tree Living would like that too. And then a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and then we would get $6.5-ish million because Lawson Krause is $4.3 million for 3 more years. He's young. I think he's 26. Let me take a look at here. Yeah, he's 26 years old. He'll be 27 here shortly. So right in the prime, 6'4", 220. Big boy. So Utah definitely could be an option. Next one, maybe the least probable, would be Washington, but I do see a potential fit with Washington as well. Washington has a lot of right defensemen. They have they're struggling a little bit with their prospect pool. They definitely need some offensive talent. This year they just couldn't score. They really had very limited offense, and Mitch Marner would definitely help improve there. So in this one, it was Trevor Van Riemsdyk, TVR, can't speak, a first and a second. So first in 2024, I think that's the 17th overall, if I remember correctly, and a second in 2025, and a whole bunch of cap space. TVR only has a $3 million hit for a few more years, for 2 more years, and he would basically be a bottom pair defenseman on the right D, which we definitely could use a few different right Ds. So he's just an option, and then we would have another $7 or $8 million to play around with to get another piece in UFA. The team that I think is most likely will be Nashville. I think Nashville, people are like, oh, why would he wave to Nashville? Nashville's a pretty cool place, to be honest with you. So there is that. So 2 different options. They have a 2024 first. You have UC Saros. Saros is an unrestricted free agent goalie next year as well. He is one of the best goalies in the league. The problem with Saros is he's actually the smallest goalie in the league, I believe. He's 5'11". He's one of the only goalies, maybe if not the only goalie who's under 6 feet tall. But he just keeps putting up great numbers. He's 29 years old. I assume it would be Marner extends, Saros extends, and then we get a pick as well. Saros is 1 more year at $5 million, and I think him and Woll would be a great complementary pair. If Nashville chooses to extend Saros, I could see them giving us Askarov, potentially. Askarov is a really young stud goalie. He's only 21. I could see the Leafs getting him as well, potentially. I know last year at the draft, Askarov's name was out there. It looked like Nashville wanted to move up, and they were willing to use Askarov as a trade piece, since they have Saros anyways. So we'll see how that plays out, but that is a potential option. Saros a first for Marner. Could definitely see as being a viable option. So in this scenario, we would have 2 first-round picks in this draft. I would be all on board. So this is the most likely scenario that I see would be Nashville, but we'll see how it plays out. Obviously, like we said, Mitch Marner has a full no-move clause, which does lower his value, because he says, I'll only go and play one place. So I know some people don't even think the Leafs will get a first-round pick with Saros, but I personally do. Goalies don't tend to be worth as much. But this is a trade that I would like, get a legitimate starting goalie. So you'd have Saros and Woll. I think that would be such a great tandem. An extra first-round pick. Nashville gets a superstar winger. So I could see this working out for both teams. And the Leafs get a bunch of cap space, an extra $6 million. So I made a team based on this last trade. So what would a full team look like if we were to make this trade with Nashville? So that's the only trade that I made here, was with Nashville for that first-round pick and Saros. So we have those 2 first-round picks. So I extended Dewar, who's RFA, for 2 years at $950,000. I extended Gregor 1 year, $775,000, and I put him in the minors. Liljegren 4 years at $3 million a year. Robertson 2 years at $1.25 million a year. And then the unrestricted free agents, I'll just go down the roster. The big ones were Bertuzzi and Domi. I want both of these guys back. I signed Bertuzzi 5 years, $5 million. Domi $4.5 million for 5 years. that would just be such a great line. I really would be happy with that. So you got Bertuzzi, Matthews, Domi. Second line of Nyes, Tavares, Nylander. Third line, McMahon, Holmberg, Robertson. Dewar, Kampf, Yarncroke on the fourth line. And then I put Fraser Minton. Fraser Minton can be a lot of different options here. Fraser Minton could play number 3. It was more just to fill out the roster here. We had the cap space. Of this forward group, the hole that I see is 3 center. Like Holmberg is not the best option for number 3 center. He would be a good fourth center or 5th C or 4th line left winger. He can go up and down. But if that's your starting position, this would be where I would want to upgrade at the deadline potentially. But obviously we have Holmberg, Minton, Cowan, who could potentially fill in that slot. So for this entire team, that's the one hole where I'm looking at. I'm like, we'll see. Maybe we have the pieces, maybe not. On defense, Morgan Rielly. Love Morgan Rielly with Matt Roy. And I signed Matt Roy, I think it was 5 years, $6 million a year. We'll see what he gets. The cap's going up huge. I wouldn't be surprised if we have some huge contracts coming up. So Matt Roy, beside Morgan Rielly, he's just a defensive, physical defenseman. I think he would be a great partner for Rielly. He's 30 years old. So that takes him a little bit late, until he's 35 or 36 even. McCabe with Sean Walker. So Roy was with LA. Walker is currently on Colorado. He was with Philadelphia and he got traded for a first-round pick at the deadline. So $4.5 million for 4 years or 5 years. I put 4 years here. That'd be great. He's 29. This would be a great contract moving forward. And then Benoit, and then I signed Gustafsson as well as like a 7th defenseman or as our 6th defenseman. Who knows? It takes 7 or 8 defensemen or more, maybe even 10 to be in the lineup. You saw how many guys we went through. But Gustafsson, he's playing with the New York Rangers right now. I signed him for 2 years, $1.5 million. Just wanted a bit more offense. So of this defense, I like it. I still believe we're missing one guy on the right side who could give a little bit more offense, but we still have Timmins in this scenario as well. So we do have Timmins in the minors here who can come up and provide some offense. So we'll see. Another option that we could go instead of Walker, we can go with a guy with Tanev. We could trade a guy like Liljegren and get a guy who's more offensive on the right side. So there's a lot of different ways, but this is the defensive roster that I chose here. There's quite a few defensive defensemen and offensive defensemen available at as an unrestricted free agent. So I'm curious to see what the Leafs do. And then in net, UC Saros and Joseph Woll. I would be very happy to bring back Martin Jones at $1.1 million a year and send him in the minors. Just tell him ahead of time. We'll give you the maximum variable amount, which is $1.1 million, and just send him straight to the minors. And if we have any injuries, you have Martin Jones. I thought he did great this year. But yeah, so this is what I see for Mitch Marner. So obviously we have Carolina, Seattle, Utah, Washington, Nashville. I'm sure there's other teams who are going to inquire. It might not be one of these teams, but these are the 5 teams that I could see. Of the teams, I would say the third most likely is Utah, the second most likely is Seattle, and the most likely is Nashville. That's how I see it. What do I know? Anyways, what are your thoughts? Where do you think he goes? Do you think he gets traded? If so, where does he go, and what do you think he gets as a package? I'll miss him, but we have too much money in our forwards, and we need to really split things out. Anyways, I'll be making one video a week every Saturday, so I'm so excited to post one. I think my next week's video will be talking about Tavares and where I think he could possibly go, because there's a chance that he waves. I think it's less likely than Marner, but that'll be my next week's, is talking about Tavares and where he could possibly go. Anyways, so honored to have you here. Drop a like, drop a subscribe, follow if you're interested. Every single Saturday, you'll get more Leafs content. So Brian, the Leafs guy, out of here. Until next time.